Becoming a great shooter is simple, and it's something that I'm convinced anybody can do, even if you're watching this and you really struggle with it. Notice I said simple, I didn't say easy. There's 3 simple steps you need to follow if you want to become an elite shooter. And if you look at any of the world's greatest shooters, from Steph Curry to Klay Thompson, Damian Lillard, Ray Allen, or anybody else who shoots the ball at a really high level, they've been through these 3 steps. If you commit to doing these 3 things, you're going to put yourself on the path to becoming a great shooter. And because shooting the basketball is by far the most important skill in the game of basketball, this will completely change everything for you. Let's get into it. So the first step to becoming an elite shooter is fixing your form and then developing it to a point where it works best for you. Shooting is one of those things where it's a little bit different for everybody. There's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all for every single thing, but there are certain constants when it comes to shooting form, and you have to understand that if you want to be a great shooter. There's a lot of common mistakes that I see with players, and it prevents them from being able to shoot the ball consistently at a high level. Some of the things that I see the most are not understanding how to transfer energy efficiently, not holding the ball correctly, and that can lead to a bunch of different problems. Having bad arc or a bad follow through, and there's a couple other things as well that I see a lot from players that, again, it's going to prevent them from being able to consistently shoot the ball well. And if you're making mistakes that lead to these things happening, it's pretty much going to be impossible for you to become a great shooter on a consistent basis. It's the idea that anybody can go out and have a great day where they make a few shots, right? But how many players can consistently do that? You might go out and be able to make 5 threes. Can you do that every single game? If you can't do that, then you're not at a point yet where you can call yourself great because you're not consistent, right? Anybody can be good or really good one time, right? Or from time to time. But players who can be consistently great or consistently good over and over and over again, that's how you become great. So we need to find a way to build that consistency, and it's going to be impossible to do that if you don't have your form dialed in. So I'm going to link a video above that kind of goes through step by step how to fix your form, some of those mistakes that I mentioned, how to fix those things, because chances are if you're watching this and you struggle with shooting, you're probably making at least one of those mistakes, if not more of them. So I'll link that video above. And after we go through these next 2 tips, make sure you go and check that video out. So the second step to becoming a great shooter is to get reps at the common actions and shots that you need to be able to make. So it's important that you're able to make the shots that matter, right? These are the shots that happen the most in the game. It's great to be able to hit some crazy step back 3. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't work on them, right? If you're a player who's ever worked with me, right? If you're one of my players who trains with, like, we work on crazy stuff. Like we shoot crazy shots all the time, but we also really spend a ton of time working on the shots that they're going to get a lot, okay? And also, if you aren't able to make those shots that we get a lot at a consistent level, we're probably not spending a ton of time working on the crazy stuff. So it's important that we have that mastery of the stuff that's important. And when we look at like some sort of crazy step back, how often are you really going to have the opportunity to shoot that if you're not already a master of the other stuff where you have the green light to be able to do those sorts of things, right? That's why it's important. So when we look at the things that matter, the shots that matter, what you should be working on, the number one thing is catch and shoot threes. Number one thing, right? And there's a couple different areas of this that matter, right? A couple different ways we can get to it. So there we can look at like an inside out or a driving kick where your teammate drives into the paint, your defender helps in, and they kick the ball out to you on the wing or in the corner or at the top, whatever. Basically, an inside-out look. So the ball gets to the inside, then back to the outside. Now, that can happen off a driving kick, like I said, or it could come off of like maybe you have a teammate who's in the post, and the ball gets entered the low post, and they turn and skip the ball out to you, right? That's also an inside-out 3. Those are looks that happen and shots that happen all the time in basketball. So you need to be able to hit those shots, because if you can hit those shots, you're all of a sudden going to be a viable offensive threat pretty much any time you're on the floor, because inside-out looks happen all the time, right? So you want to be able to master hitting those sorts of shots. The other shot off a catch and shoot that's really important is the extra pass 3, right? Where maybe you're on the wing, somebody in the opposite wing drives towards the baseline, and they kick it out to your teammate who's in the same corner as you, and maybe 2 defenders close out to him, and then they kick it, or her, and they kick it up to you on the wing, and that's a little extra pass. So the difference here is that the angle of the pass is coming more from the side, right? So corner to wing, or top to wing, or wing to corner, where, inside out is really coming straight on. Now you have to be able to hit a shot coming from the side of you on that extra pass. So we have those 2 things where if we can hit that inside out three where that ball's coming from in front of you, and you can hit that extra pass three where the ball's coming from the side of you. That's going to cover you in about probably 80 to 90% of the catch and shoot three opportunities you're ever going to get. And if you can master just those two things, you're going to be in a really, really good spot. The other area off catch and shoot threes that's important is transition looks. And that can sometimes be similar to those looks we already talked about. But if you can do those three things, hit the inside out three, hit the extra pass three, and then hit transition threes as well, you're pretty much going to be effective in any instance in the game of basketball. So those three things. And then when it comes to off the dribble, becoming a master of mid-range pull-ups. And again, I'm not talking about 7 dribble combo step back shots in the mid-range. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is you drive to the basket, and for whatever reason, you can't get the whole way to the rim. Maybe the help is there or whatever, and you're able to stop and hit that pull-up in the mid-range, right, as a counter to your drive. So you catch the ball. Okay, you don't have the catch and shoot three, so now you put the ball on the ground to drive, hoping to get to the rim. You can't get to the rim for whatever reason, so are you able to stop and hit that mid-range shot? If you can do that, it makes you a very dangerous player. When I say this, it's like 1 or 2 dribble pull-ups, specifically 2 dribbles, because the majority of pull-ups that you're going to take are going to be 2 dribble pull-ups, right? 1 dribble pull-ups happen, but not nearly as often as the 2 dribble pull-ups happen. So are you able to consistently knock down those where, again, maybe a closeout's coming and it's, you know, a really aggressive one, and you're able to drive past them and get to a 2 dribble pull-up at the elbow? Like, can you make that shot consistently? Okay, we talk about being a great shooter, hitting those catch and shoot 3 looks, and then being able to hit those mid-range pull-up looks off of 1 or 2 dribbles. Super, super important. If you can do those things, you're going to be ready to make an impact in games, and you're going to be the type of player who's going to be able to be successful in just about any situation on offense, because that's an incredibly important and sought-after skill to have. So the third step that's crucially important, this is probably the step that gets talked about the least and that gets overlooked the most, and it's maybe the biggest reason why there are players who maybe they shoot really well in practice, they can go into a workout and make a lot of shots, but they might get to games and not be able to make shots. And it's because this third step is you need to be able to build adaptability as a shooter. Okay, so the game of basketball is incredibly complex when it comes to just overall movement, right? Because there's so many different things happening. It's you and 9 other players on the court, and you know, amongst those players, there's differences in athleticism and in height, all these different things, and differences in skill as well. So there's a bunch of different factors at play, meaning the game is not perfect. Like, you're not going to be able to say, like, okay, this is the same thing I'm going to do every single time. Like, when I get to my catch and shoot 3, the ball's going to get past me right here, and I'm going to be in this spot, and my feet are going to be like this every single time. That's just not realistic in the game of basketball. So not every single shot is going to be the same. If you followed me for any amount of time, especially on Instagram, at Vision Driven Basketball, by the way, you've probably seen me and my players work on a bunch of crazy-looking shots in our workouts, right? Where our feet are all sorts of crazy different directions, and the ball is doing a bunch of different crazy things, and you know, we're facing the wrong direction, all these different things. And people might look at that and say, well, why would you ever do that? That's not the shot you shoot in a game. Like, why would you ever do that? In reality, if you actually look, you actually watch the game, you actually watch the film, you're going to see that the game is very imperfect. There are a lot of situations where you're going to catch and shoot the ball and your feet are not going to be perfect because a defender is trailing you coming off a screen and you don't have time. Or there's a closeout coming, you have to get the shot off a little bit quicker. So the game is not as cut and dry, black and white perfect as we like to make it out to be. And when you really watch it, you see like, oh, wow, the shot pocket was a little different on that shot. Or their feet were a little bit off on that shot. Or, you know, the way that they were facing was a little bit off on that shot right there. And they still were able to make the shot because they can adapt to those situations and be able to make it anyway. That's what we try and do, is we try and mimic those real in-game demands so that when we get to the real game and it's demanded of you to be able to do those things and overcome those imperfections, you're able to do it. So it's really, really important. And there's a concept that you have to understand when it comes to anything, but basketball is a great example. And it's the difference between a novice or a beginner and an expert. So a novice can make shots when things are perfect, right? When everything is great and their feet are perfect, whatever, they can be successful. And this is in any situation. Like, a novice is somebody who can be successful in a perfect situation. When nothing is working against them, they can complete the task. They can get the job done. An expert, on the other hand, is able to get the job done, complete the task, despite all the imperfections working against them. There could be a lot of things wrong, and they're still going to be able to adapt and find a way to figure it out and get the job done. And in basketball, when it comes to shooting the ball, an expert is somebody who is able to make shots despite imperfections. So they're being chased coming off a screen, and they have to shoot the ball with their feet not perfect. They're still able to make it. A closeout's coming, and they caught the ball kind of weird. They have to get the ball off quickly. They're able to make it anyway. Their teammate is driving, kicks the ball out to them, and it's a bad pass. Maybe it's a little low, a little high, to the left, to the right. They're able to catch that on a bad pass and still make the shot. Despite the imperfections, they're able to get the job done. So we want to train to become an expert. A lot of players get stuck not being able to make shots in games at a high level because they don't train to become an expert. They train the way a novice would. Everything is always perfect for them in their training. Their feet are always perfect. Everything is always exactly ideal how you want it to be. And then they get to games where it's not like that, and they wonder why they can't make shots anymore. Or they can't make shots at the level that they feel like they should based on the amount of time they put in. It's probably because they're not working on being able to handle this imperfection. So if you want to be able to be considered a great shooter, you need to start challenging yourself so that you're able to do these things. Why is Steph Curry the best shooter to ever touch a basketball? Well, it's because he can make shots despite so many things working against him. There is just about nothing you can do to get Steph Curry to consistently miss. He can handle high speeds. He can handle contests, bad passes, messed up footwork. He can do it off the catch and off the dribble. There's pretty much nothing you can throw at him that's going to make him miss. He's going to miss because he's human, but he's not going to miss consistently because he's the best shooter ever. And he does those things at a level higher than anybody else, right? If you can't shoot like Steph can, it's because you cannot handle the amount of difficulty that Steph can handle. So if we want to move towards that, right, you want to move towards being able to shoot the ball like someone like Steph Curry can, then you need to start training your ability to handle that difficulty. So if your shooting is easy and everything is perfect, you're not training to do that. That's why it's important that we add in bad footwork shooting, bad pass shooting, shooting coming off of closeouts and contests where you might be a little bit rushed. It's important that we work on those things because that's going to prepare us for the imperfections that are going to happen with those games, with those game looks, right? And when you start to do these things and you get good at that, it's going to translate to you making those game shots we just talked about at an even higher level because very little is going to be able to throw you off, and you're going to be prepared to make those shots at a much more consistent level. So I'm also going to link a workout above that kind of touches on this as well. And if you're interested in a full shooting program that's going to take your shooting to an elite level, it'll give you workouts to follow. It'll give you film breakdowns, confidence and mindset videos, really everything that you need to become an elite level shooter. Then check out the Elite Shooter System. That's the top link in the description below. Go ahead and check that out. If you want to take your shooting to a whole new level, it'll change things for you. So like I said, top link below. I appreciate you for watching. Drop a like and comment. Let me know if you got anything from this video. Subscribe if you're new. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.